and welcome to my dungeon. So good to be home in my dungeon. I went to New York and I've never really been to New York. Like I did very briefly like 10 years ago, but it wasn't like New York, you know, it was like the state New York, and I was there for Warped Tour. Yeah, I'd never been, and I kind of always wanted to. I thought it'd be cool to see, you know, the Statue of Liberty. It'd be cool to see Times Square, the Nintendo store, because there's a giant Link statue. Unrelated, very related. I was really excited to go, and I have a friend who lives in New York, and they're about to move back to LA, and so they were like, oh, you should come visit. And I was like, yeah. So I gathered my stuff, and my flight was for like, I don't know, 6 a.m. and so I had to get to the airport at like 4:30, and it takes like an hour to get to the airport. And so old Kate would have seen that and been like, you know what? I'll pull an all-nighter. I'll sleep on the plane. Current Kate is like, I'm gonna try to get at least 1 hour of sleep. I know 1 hour of sleep is better than no hours of sleep. I tried to go to sleep that night. You wanna guess how much I slept? I didn't sleep at all. Not even a crumb. I tossed and turned, and it's one of those things where you're like, I gotta sleep, I gotta sleep, I gotta sleep, you know? Didn't happen. I fly, I get to New York. Yep, okay, he's here. Yeah, I know. I meet up with my friends and we get to their house and we're like, huzzah! Now what? And I was like, I want to go to bed because it's East Coast, right? And I'm West Coast. And so I get 3 hours and it's just, but I got there like decently early, you know, and it was a nonstop, which by the way, very long flight. It felt like a very long flight, but we get there and it was time to party. And by party, I mean order pizza. And I tried the pizza. Everyone kept saying, oh, New York pizza, so good. And I was like, what could possibly be so good about it? And the thing is like, it did not blow my mind. But there's one thing I don't like about pizza. It doesn't matter if you get it from Domino's, Pizza Hut, or there's like, you know, the mom and pop shops. Like, no pizzas really taste good because I have a problem with the sauce. The sauce always tastes weird, or it's too much sauce. I don't really like the sauce. In New York, the sauce was great. In New York, it was like the whole pizza was like, it came together. I didn't mind the sauce in New York. Like it was good. I was really surprised. And so I ate probably a little too much pizza, but it was good. And so I was like, nice, mark that off the checklist. I tried the pizza. The next thing on the checklist was the bagels. And I wasn't all that impressed with the bagels. It just was kind of like bread. I was expecting it to be delicious and it was like, yep, this is bread. That was a little unfortunate. Another thing I ate, I was so excited about, because if you watched my videos on Piddle-ass, you would know that I went to Japan a handful of times. And in Japan, there's a ramen restaurant called Ichiran, and I loved Ichiran, and it was like the highlight of my day. And so they made one in New York, and I was so excited. And so I went to New York and I had it, and it flunked. I was disappointed. It did not taste as good. I don't know what it was. Like, it just, the noodles didn't taste as good. The broth didn't taste as good. The meat was fine. But like everything, I was like, oh man. And I hyped it up so much to my friends. I hyped it up and I was like, Ichiran, Ichiran, Ichiran. And we get there and they're like, yeah, it was good. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. I lied to everybody. And then I started wondering, like, one, did COVID break me? Because I had COVID almost a year ago in September. I kind of lost my sense of taste, but not really. And so I was like, did it change my taste buds? Is it ruined? I have to go to Japan now to figure it out. Haha. Also, too, just want to throw this out. I knew nothing about New York. I went into this completely blind. The only thing I knew was that the Link statue was in the Nintendo store. I wanted to see the Statue of Liberty, and that Times Square had the ball that goes doo 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 doo. Hooray! 2024. Woohoo! Woohoo! You know? When we get there, my friends are like, oh, you want to go see, you know, the Chrysler building? And I was like, the what? Oh, you want to see the Empire State Building? I've heard of that. I don't know what it is. Hey, what's that really big building over there? That's the Freedom Tower. That's where the Twin Towers were, which, by the way, very surreal seeing it in person, because like it was one thing, you know, hearing about it my whole life. Didn't know what was happening because I was in the 3rd grade, but you know, it's just throughout my life. And so, oh, it's so terrible. It's so terrible. It's weird seeing it in person. Obviously they're gone, but like they had the big one and it was just kind of like, it was kind of like just like a solemn but like powerful but also terrifying moment, just kind of seeing it in person. Like, oh, there used to be 2 here. That's crazy. They were big. And I know it sounds dumb, but like it unless you experience it, I don't know if you're gonna understand what I'm talking about. I didn't know what any of the buildings were. And so they were explaining to me what that's the Empire State Building over there. And I was like, oh, that's where Spider-Man sits on top of the little pointy thing. Like their jaw dropped. And I was like, I'm sorry. I'm from Texas, Georgia, and Oklahoma, and I guess now technically LA. I'm in the South. I make really good sweet tea. I kind of have an accent sometimes. And I also have California in me because I go, no, yeah, for sure. I also, too, I say sure sometimes. If somebody goes, oh, do you want to go to the store? I'm like, yeah, sure. Is that a California thing, saying sure? Or am I just a fool? A court jester, if you will. I went to the Nintendo store. I looked for Link and he was there and it was glorious, but I couldn't, okay, now bear with me. I couldn't touch him. I know what you're thinking. Kate, bonk, dong, 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 the horny jail. No, I wanted to take cute pictures. I wanted to put my hand up against his hand, maybe put my face against his hand, you know, just cute little fun, memorable pictures. But they had stuff guarding him and then a sign saying don't touch him and don't climb on him, don't sit on him. So I just took a picture like this next to him because what else could I do? Nothing. It was really cool seeing him though. The whole Nintendo store though was like kind of a letdown a little bit because all the shirts I saw, I'm like, yep, saw that on Kohl's, saw that at Kohl's, saw that at Old Navy, that's in Hot Topic. You would think that in the Nintendo store they would have unique clothes, and the same thing. I went to the Nintendo store in Universal because in California, same thing. They had like nothing, and I was like, this is stinky. Like what is this? I want cool, you know, different clothes that I'm not gonna find at Walmart.com, you know. I went and saw like a really old church. That was cool. Walked up and there was like a graveyard and like part of me was like, whoa, I've been here before. And I was like, hey, don't do that. Don't be weird. Don't know why, but it saw Alexander Hamilton's grave and people were, listen, I'm gonna be honest. I know there's a musical called Hamilton. Couldn't tell you what it's about. It's about him. Don't know what he did. Probably something political. He wasn't a president, was he? So went to the church, was cool. Walked around a lot, was cool. Went to Times Square, was cool. I saw a really big like brass bowl and I saw his marbles were discolored because of how often people were touching his marbles, and they were big marbles and it was a little shocking. I went on a boat that like went and I saw the Statue of Liberty. That was cool. I didn't go on it, kind of wish I did, but it was still cool being like, hey, that's her. I've seen her in pictures, you know? It was kind of just like surreal because it's like, okay, well, you just, you know, why does it really matter? I like seeing things. I've seen the Eiffel Tower. I've seen Big Ben. I know it's not technically the right term, but you know, whatever. I've seen Mount Fuji. I've gone and I've seen stuff. And I think it's so cool to just like see stuff and experience stuff if you have the ability, you know? And so I really like doing that. So when I was in Paris, I wanted to go see like all the art stuff. And I wanted to go into the caverns and I wanted to see all the bones and stuff. Was it going to scare me? Absolutely. Was I going to get haunted? Probably. But I wanted to experience it, you know? And unfortunately, I did not go. But I don't know if I want to go back to France though. Paris was kind of stinky. Kind of smelled like pee everywhere. It was like Hollywood. Don't go to Hollywood. And then you may be wondering, Kate, this whole story, did you ever go to Central Park? Yes. And the thing is about Central Park, we're gonna get a haha, here we go. The only thing I knew about Central Park was that people were murdered there because I like watching murder documentaries and murder shows and murder mysteries. Because like when I was younger, I wanted to be an FBI agent, but then I thought of like I had to see guts and other horrible, horrible things. And I was just like, you know what, maybe I don't have the stomach for this. I just wanted to help people and I wanted to solve mysteries, you know? You have to like not have PTSD or anxiety, and like guess what, I have both. Anyway, so the only thing I knew about Central Park was that it was a really big park and that has two sections. There's the north and the south, and two sections are different police forces because it's so big. I was thinking it was just one long football field of grass. I didn't know it was like an adventure. Like it was like, I want you to imagine you're going on a walk in your forest of a backyard. It was like that. I was like, there's trees, like there were sidewalks, there were stairs, and I'm like, yeah, no wonder people get murdered here. Like you can hide a body. I was like, this is really surprising. This is kind of cool. I mean, not the murders, but like obviously like, you know, just going on a walk and it like the air was fresh. It was like cool and the wind felt nice and everyone was just chilling and there was like musicians everywhere and I was like, this is so cool. There was a pond. You know, I felt good. They also had a castle in Central Park, which was like a little surprising. It was a little castle, but I climbed up on it anyway and I took pictures like this. I liked it. I think I went to Central Park twice. And then I went to the Natural Museum of History, Science, Arts. I don't know. There was something. I went to the one where it's like, the Misa Gum Gum. I don't know. Why did I mix Jar Jar Binks in okay, you know what? What's the movie, The Night of the Museum? That was the museum. And so I was like, I want to go see the dinosaur. He wasn't there. But the Gum Gum guy was. And it was weird because that movie came out like, what, 15 years ago? And so people were lining up to take a picture with him. And the entire time, all I kept hearing was, Gum Gum, Gum Gum. Am I 15 again? Like, what happened? I just remembered. I have to tell you about the really weird situation. When we were walking up to go on the boat, which it was like not a boat, it was a ferry. We were gonna go on a ferry to get to Staten Island, just, you know, this whole time in New York, right? I've been told, oh, don't look when somebody screams, then just pay attention to your own business, you know, don't interact with anybody. So I was like, you know, me being, you know, Southern, I'm like, angry. And like I do have like a resting angry face. I do have one, all right? I know doesn't really look like it, but I do have like, it's kind of resting sad face. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so we were walking up and we were like, okay, I think we go this, like we had just gotten out of the taxi. This guy runs up. He's like, hey, excuse me, miss, excuse me. And he like walks in front of me and I'm just like, I just keep dead face, just keep walking. And my friends were like behind me, and then we're like, oh, actually we have to go the other way. And we're like, dang it, because that's where all the people were, right? So we're walking over, and this guy comes up, excuse me, miss, excuse me. Do you wanna, where do you wanna go? Where do you wanna go? Where do you want to be? And he like stood in front of me blocking my path and was like, excuse me, where are you trying to go? Are you trying to see the Statue of Liberty? Where did you, it's fine. There's lots of cameras around. Like nothing's gonna hurt. You don't need to be scared. I'm sorry. Well, now I am. Like, what? For one, I'm not looking for cameras. Two, I have places to be, buddy. Do I look like I don't know where I'm going? Like, I try to look like I knew where I was going. But anyway, so then right when he said that, I looked up and I was like, because who says that? And he's like, oh, it's fine, I work here. And he showed his like pass. I still wasn't buying it because people who work in places are not that pushy. The only time people have been so pushy to me is when I go into a store and it's lush. But they're just like, all you can say is like, oh no, I'm just looking for stuff. Okay, well if you need anything, come find me. This guy was like, where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you up to? Where are you going? What do you want to see? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to get? And I was like trying to ignore him. But apparently that didn't work. And so we were like, oh, we're fine, thank you. And he's like, oh, well, I could take you to this, I could take you to that. It was just so weird. And then we get inside and we realized like, yeah, it was a scam. It was a scam. They worked there, but not for where we were going. They worked there for like a different ferry, because the ferry we were taking was free. The ferry they were wanting to take us on, which wasn't really a ferry, it was a boat, they charge you like $45. That's how they scam you. Did I bring up the pasta? I had the best fettuccine alfredo of my life. You know, like I know a lot of people kind of like don't really care about fettuccine alfredo. It was the best. Like I had a hankering. I had a hankering for noodles and cheese, and like that was probably my favorite food out of all of stuff that we've had in New York. It was a fettuccine alfredo. Nothing will compare to that ever again. And I took some home because I couldn't eat it all. And I was like, it's gonna be so good reheated. It wasn't. I don't know what happened to it. It wasn't that good, but just having it in the plate at the, oh, wonderful. And this is where everything kind of falls apart, because that was like the 5 days, you know, did a lot of walking. I wore my Converse. I thought I was gonna have to take my running shoes, which would have looked ridiculous because they're neon orange. And I wanted to dress cute. So I was in a cute outfit and then would potentially have neon orange running shoes. But the Converse worked out. My feet were fine. We walked a lot, but like, yeah, I was fine. So this is where it starts to fall apart, right? Because I had flown out from LA and my friend Nate was in Canada, and like, you know, whatever, everybody met up in New York. So it's like, hey, big group friend, you know? But coming back, I was like, you know, beforehand, I told Nate, hey, book on this flight, you know, that way we could be on the same flight together. It'll be easier. We can, you know, Uber together, blah, 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 whatever. So we are in our Uber on our way we were gonna go to the shopping mall just to like kill time before, because we didn't want to sit at the airport for forever, you know? And we also wanted to see more of like what's around, right? So we were going to a shopping mall, and it is like, I don't know, 6 hours before our flight that we need to be at the airport. You know, we had plenty of time, and both of us get a text and it says, oh, we're so sorry. Also, by the way, United, it's United Airlines, never again. Both get a text, oh, your flight has been canceled. Your next flight is gonna go, it went from nonstop to your flight is gonna have a layover in Houston, Texas. And so we were like, oh, this sucks. And so I text a group chat with our other friend who lives in New York, and we were like, oh no. I was like, yeah, our flight got delayed to Houston. And Nate goes, no, it got delayed to Chicago. And I was like, no, it got delayed to Houston. And we slowly look at it, because I'm on my phone, we're texting, right? And I don't know why we were just not talking out loud, but when we were texting, we look at each other like this. And I hold up our phone, and mine said Houston, his said Chicago. They put us on 2 separate flights because we didn't book at the same time, because why would we? You know, I just did an impromptu trip. But anyway, so we were looking at each other like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And we're like, okay, let's just, you know, we'll go to the mall, and then while we're at the mall, we'll try to figure it out and try to get, you know, different stuff. And we get to the mall, couldn't do anything. It said go to the people at the airport. We were like, oh, okay. So after the mall, like we were there for like an hour and a half. They're like, okay, we need to go. So then we go to the airport, we get dropped off at the airport, we walk in, and I'm like, hi, you know, this is what happened. We were supposed to be on the same flight. We're traveling together. We didn't buy them at the same time, but we're friends. Haha. They were like, yeah, no, nothing we can do. You're lucky you got on planes. Nothing we can do. So like, can you put me on his flight? Because like his flight was 4 hours after mine takes off. And they're like, yeah, no, sorry, nothing we can do. So they're like, yep, you just gotta check in, you gotta check your bag, you gotta go to and we're like, okay. So we check in. Nate has a bag because he came from Canada, so he checked his bag. I brought a duffel bag because I was like, I'm gonna travel light, which was a good idea. Also slightly annoying because I had to carry that bag around for a really long time. We go in and we're sitting down when he's like, oh, we should probably eat something. We don't know how long, you know, we're gonna be here. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So we get down and we get some nachos, you know? And he's like, oh, I'm gonna try to like see if I can get on your flight. And I was like, okay, sounds good. United have like these QR codes where it puts you in contact with someone. So after we're done eating, we walk over, we sit down, and he's trying to contact someone via QR code. Apparently, this is what we didn't know. The microphone was on. They were just in a text chat, but the microphone was on. So this person, Diamond, wherever you are, could hear Nate and I going, oh man, I hope they can help us. Oh man, that'd be so great if they could put you on our flight. Oh, that'd be so great. It just, blah, 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 blah. They could hear the whole, and then they were like, okay, we got you on the flight, you know, blah, blah, I'll redirect your bag and blah, blah. And we're like, oh, this person's awesome. They need a raise. They need to, Diamond's the best. And they could hear us just like praising them, you know? Anyway, and they're like, yeah, I even sat you together. We're like, oh, this person's awesome. Oh man, I'm going to tell United how great they are and that this is great and blah, 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 blah. And we're like, we thought that was the end of our problems, right? We thought. So then, you know, time to board. And the thing is, there was one standby slot, and that was the slot. There were like 8 other people waiting, and nope, Nate got that slot. And we were like, so we get on the airplane and they're like, yeah, so we may have some, you know, storms coming in, but y'all should be fine. We're like, cool, cool, cool. So we go sit down and I'm like, oh, we're like preparing to sit down. And I'm like, where's your seat? And he's like, oh, it's like 32A. And I was like, Diamond lied. We're not sitting next to each other. And he's like, wait, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm like 37B. I don't know. I was in the middle. I was so angry because on my first flight, the nonstop flight, nonstop, by the way, I had a window seat. I picked out a window seat and I was stuck in the middle. But when I walked over, there was a lady who was like with her adult son and she's like, oh, do you mind sitting in the aisle so I can sit in the middle so I can be with my son? And I was like, absolutely, you enjoy that middle seat. I'm going to sit like this and enjoy the aisle. At least that's what I thought was gonna happen. And then the pilot came over the intercom and was like, hey guys, we're gonna be stuck on the tarmac for like 45 minutes to an hour because we're about to get a crazy storm. 2 hours later, we finally take off. And I know what you're thinking, oh, that's not too bad. Or you're thinking that's awful. Here's the worst part, ready? So we take off and we land in Houston, Texas. And our connecting flight took off without us. And it was like 10 p.m. and there was not a single United employee anywhere. We had no ticket. We had no one to talk to. The airport was deserted. And if we left the airport, we had no ticket to get back in, right? So we had to stay in the airport. But Nate was like, what about my checked bag? It says it's on the carousel down below in baggage claim. Let's go get it. I'm like, no, dude, if we leave, we can't get back in because we don't have a ticket. We had traveled all day. I was on the brink of crying. I don't know. When I get stressed, I cry, okay? It's I had like the lump in my throat and I was like, no, man, we gotta stay in the airport, you know? And so then we finally like find United employees, but they're like, oh, we can't help you. Scan the QR code. Nothing we can do. Scan the QR code. And we're like, so we both scanned the QR code and I was going to be doing voice chat and then he was on the phone like calling like a United airline number. We were like, okay, what do we do? He's like, well, my bag, it says it's on the carousel. And I was like, okay, then we'll go to baggage claim, but like we can't get back in. And luckily, I have a friend who lives in Houston and I texted her the whole debacle and she's like, I'm on my way. And I was like, thank you. She was coming to save us so we could sleep at her house and then she was going to bring us back to the airport. Anyway, so we're in the baggage claim and we're, you know, oh, what's going on? We found a United flight attendant and she had no clue what was going on. She's like, yeah, they even tell us, the flight attendants, hey, go scan the QR code. She's like, it's awful. It's awful. No one's working here. And we're like, oh my God. So finally, after 35 minutes, I get someone on the voice chat. I'm explaining the whole thing. I'm sorry about that. What was her name? Angelique? I don't know. I'm sorry. But she was like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm traveling with someone, but like we didn't buy the tickets at the same time. And she's like, okay, well, let me see if I can. So she got us 2 tickets. We did sit next to each other in priority seating, which was very nice. And she was like, yeah, I can't find his bag though. And I was like, okay, that's great, that's fine. And I was like, how do I tell him that his bag's gone? But she's like, yeah, so your flight's gonna be at 6:05 a.m. And I was like, okay. Hung up and I was like, your bag's not here. And he's like, oh, okay. And so we walk out, my friend picks us up, we go get Whataburger, and it was delicious, by the way. We get to their house and we're, you know, I was like, hey, can I do some laundry real quick? I didn't bring enough clothes for this to happen. And my friend's like, yeah, of course. So I threw my stuff in the laundry and I sat like this on the couch holding a pillow, about to fall asleep. And then I finished my laundry and everyone's like, I'm gonna stay up, I'm gonna stay up. And I was like, I'm knocking out, see ya. And so I curled up and I fell asleep for an hour and everybody else apparently also wanted to go to sleep. So I fell asleep for an hour, woke up to my alarm and I'm like, We went to the airport, our tickets were good, got on the flight, flew to LA, landed in LA, walk up to the United baggage claim and we're like, where's his bag? And they're like, don't know. And we're like, excuse me? And this lady typed like this. Sorry, that was probably too fast. The lady, we were there for an hour as this lady could not figure out the computer and she had one guy come over to try to help her, but she's like, I got it. And then it was 20 minutes, because we found out his bag was in Chicago. It was never aimed for Texas. It was in Chicago the whole time. That fun? The last 20 minutes of the hour-long wait while we're trying to catch a bus, she was just trying to print the receipt. And so this worker comes over and he's like, what's taking so long? Like, what's going on? She's like, oh, he's like, why don't you just email it to him? She goes, oh. Nate starts reading out his email and she's like, how do you spell that? And the guy was like, here, write it down. And so he gave him a pen and paper and he's like, yeah, your bus is here. We're like, we know, we've already missed 3. Like, thank you. And so anyway, fill out the paper and we hand it to her. We run off. We were like sprinting to the bus and we get on and we're sitting there and we're like, I can't say the word we were thinking, but we were thinking a word. So we get to the bus, we take the bus to where we need to go, get an Uber, we take the Uber to where we need to go, drop off, whatever. And his bag was gonna get sent to his apartment and it was like a whole thing. Thor was so angry but so happy. I've never seen him do both at the same time like that, but it was, what a time. I think I slept when I came home. I slept for like 3-4 hours. I woke up a new person. That was my experience. Do I ever want to leave this dungeon again? Nope. Do I have to? Because I'm gonna go visit my mom in Texas. Yep. But at least with my mom, everything will be fine because I'm flying Southwest and never United. Never fly United. I'm still upset. I'm gonna be forever upset. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. Safe travels. Okay, bye.